Well, Texas Democrats just met a couple of weeks ago, and what you're going to see on that is going to be very interesting, especially when you consider what Republicans did just about a month ago, and that's what we're here to talk about. It's time for some Straight Talk, Texas. I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, and this is The Bunker Bob Show. Greetings, thrill seekers, music lovers, and conversationalists from across the fruited plains of the great state of Texas. I am your host, Bunker Bob Steinhagen, here to give you some unfiltered, unadulterated, and unapologetic conservatism. And along with me today is my good friend Dennis London. Hold on. There we go. Dennis London, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm good. It is. It's been an interesting few weeks.
Yes.
You just got back from, we just got back from San Antonio. You served on the Platform Committee.
Yes.
How was that experience? Tell us about it.
It was phenomenal. It really was. The ability to be able to, have those in-depth conversations, and then, also hearing testimony from people that wanted to make sure something was or wasn't on. And, we had a lot of people there talking about things they didn't want on.
That's so true.
And some of them it was more emotional than it was logical. But, being there with the other people on the committee, the committee members, and having access to, people that run some of these organizations that are for or against certain things, having that level of knowledge there, and being able just to go and ask them questions, sit down with them and say, look, I don't understand all of what you're talking about. Why? Why are you so against, or why are you so for this? And, educate me. And as a committee member, they were like, oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. Let's grab a coffee. I'll buy you a coffee. I'm like, oh, you don't need to buy me a coffee. Let's just want to sit down and talk. And I don't think people do enough of that. But it was a week of sit down and talk, have the hard conversations, and sometimes the conversations like sometimes what we have here, right? We talk, we don't always agree. Right. We do agree on a lot of things, don't always agree on everything. But having those discussions at the state level with a lot of these folks, and some things on the national level, because I was in the, National Defense and Foreign Affairs subcommittee as well.
Yes, you were.
That was something. It really was. It's an experience that, and I know you want to go, and I really wish that you do get the opportunity. I'm going to, nominate you next year. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'd like to be back on it, but it was fun to be there and really think about all of the things that were going on. Being able to kind of cover that. I did get the opportunity to talk with a group of anti-school choicers who were awesome. They were fun, entertaining, and they didn't froth at the mouth necessarily. No. But we had pretty spirited conversation on the. I did a live show from San Antonio. But I get what you're saying. I mean, there were a lot of people who are very passionate about their issue, and they think that it is the where all be all. And we have how many platform planks did we end up with?
We ended up with 259.
259. Okay. Well, and so that's.
We were charged with the hope of keeping it at 250.
No, 252, because I guess some did not get voted on. 252.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yes. You are correct. I'm sorry.
So the
it was
committee
259 before the final vote with all of the delegates.
Yes. So the committee presents.
Yes.
And to the body, and that's what to me was. That's what I love about it. So one of the things that I do want to talk about and that I'm going to highlight in a coming show is I've been watching the Democrat state convention. I've gone through
on purpose.
On purpose. No, it is. Listen, it is entertaining. It is the most entertaining. It is thought provoking. I thought there were some things. You watch. You try to put your mind around. How is it that they think this way? And watching their convention, it was eye-opening to begin with. But you've got to see, you got to hear what they're saying to really appreciate how great the state Republican Party really is, especially the way we go about doing things. Because one thing that I was really not aware of is that they don't do what Republicans do. They have a small committee that creates their platform, and then they stand up and they literally, so I'm going to play this on a future show. They literally stand up and say, this is by consensus, unless there's objection. Hearing none, the platform is passed as proposed, and that is literally how they do it. And so,
wait, don't they like to say? Oh, yeah, that's true. They like to claim that America's a democracy. So yeah,
exactly. Exactly. No, you're hitting.
Yeah. Isn't that the big thing? Oh, that Trump is a threat to American democracy. Hold on, we're a republic.
Yeah.
We're not a democracy.
That's right.
But the way they run their convention, you just told me it's a democracy.
It's not, and it's everything but, and that's what Saul Alinsky in Rules for Radicals talks about. His point is you project your own actions upon your opponent. Mm-hmm. You speak about what you're doing, and you say that they're the ones that are doing it, and that's exactly what it is. But so it's a refreshing process. And Dennis, I know you spent many long nights on your committee.
Yes.
So you were in a subcommittee. You were in two subcommittees.
Yes.
You were on
State Affairs,
and
National Defense and Foreign Affairs.
Yes. And then you met as a committee
as
of the whole.
That's correct.
And then y'all went through each category, each platform. Y'all went platform by platform, plank by plank. I will say that I was very disturbed, unsettled by the chairman of the platform committee.
Yeah.
It was not someone who was, and understand under Robert's rules, which is how we're governed as a state party, the chair is neutral. It must stay neutral for the purpose of good government. But he not only was partial on certain things, he ramrodded things and castigated people. And the way he went after people was shocking. So I'm hoping that he will not be back. But even with that, I thought that the discussion, that the debate that occurred among the committee was really healthy for the most part.
Good. Appreciate it.
Did you agree? Would you
absolutely.
agree with that?
Absolutely. And I know that you were in and out of the room. You weren't there the whole time.
No, I wasn't.
But there were a lot of times that we did get into it, and not to sound like Republican versus Democrat, across the aisle, but some folks on the other side were like, "No, what are you thinking?" No, and so we literally would go back, and there was times that decorum wasn't necessarily followed, and you'd get up and you'd go over with your laptop and you'd show them, "Look, this is why," and you try and explain it. But I go back to my opening portion where I said, having that level of discussion with these people, and a lot of them are extremely, extremely smart and educated on these things. Having that level of discussion and getting the education, whether it's you're learning or you're teaching, but the willingness for us to be able to do that. Now, there were some people on some things that they didn't want to budge at all.
Right.
And I mean, we'll talk about convention of states, right? So
definitely. So, well, why don't we dive in on some of the? You and I before the show, we kind of said, "Hey, here's some things that we want to highlight," and so I'm gonna make it possible for you to see them, those who are watching, and I want to start with the constitutional issues, and that is the amendment to the Texas Constitution, 2A and B, and so these support an amendment to the Texas Constitution that will require a majority of voters in at least 170 counties, 2/3, instead of a simple majority of votes to pass amendment. This is brand new. I haven't seen that last year. What do you know about this, and how did that debate go?
This one, they were talking about, just the ability to be able to get 2/3 of anybody to do anything. And they're saying in this, to have at least 2/3 of the counties of Texas, because you don't want, and I mean, this goes even to election integrity, right? Or to the elections, where we start, saying that, well, Dallas and Houston, our two most populous would be able to have the biggest voice. Well, why don't you have that voice spread out and make it a majority amongst the counties? And so that was the idea behind this. It's like, look, if we're going to do this, have the majority amongst the counties. And of course, there's going to be people go, well, a lot of those rural counties are all going to be deep red and want to glom onto their guns. Well, yeah, most Texans do.
Right.
Where do you find the people that want to get rid of it? Well, in those cities, in the blue cities, in the blue areas, they're the ones that are saying, we don't want it, we don't need it. It's like, well, you always say you don't need it until you need it.
Exactly.
And then you want it, and you can't get it.
Yeah. Great point. And so moving along with the next one, which support limiting terms as Texas Speaker of the House to 2 consecutive terms, after which Speaker must vacate the office for the same amount of. So this is I mean, what's interesting about this is we really haven't had many speakers who have had longevity.
Right.
So this is I think it's fine. I don't mind it. I think I'm a proponent of term limits. I think that's good. But what was the discussion specifically?
I wasn't in that
Yeah.
subcommittee, but I understand it was they just want to try and keep it similar to what we have with some elected offices, where it's like, look, you can't run roughshod over everything.
Right.
Because if you look at what Phelan has done over the last 2 sessions, the times when he wanted to make his voice known, and he would say, and he would show the speaker as voting, aye or nay. Well, that was his directive to the others, and you would watch them all just fall right in line.
Yeah.
They would vote accordingly.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Phelan won his re-election
By 366 votes.
Incredible.
With over 2,000 Democrats known to have voted in that. I'm sorry, did I say that part out loud?
You said it out loud because
Which is why we have in here to close our primaries.
Exactly. The Rules Committee actually
Passed
preempted
that way.
Yeah,
That's correct.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Good job on that. All right. Well, let's move along. There on D of supporting an amendment for term limits, which I'm a big supporter of, and then so this next one, E, is really what caught my eye and I love. Support an amendment to allow the Texas Attorney General to prosecute cases anywhere in Texas where county district attorneys refuse to enforce state law and to prosecute those who are accused of with prima facie evidence of violating state laws. I mean, Dennis, this one hits home for me because this whole issue of our district attorney who is refused to hold elected officials accountable for violating the Texas Open Meetings Act, for allowing developer specifically in one case to go into an executive session in clear violation of the law, and no action was taken. This is, I mean, it's not just. I mean, I think when people read this, they think about the what's happening in Baltimore and these other leftist basically communities where they're just not enforcing law. Yeah. This is applicable in rural areas as well, where you have basically a good old boy network, for lack of a better term, the district attorney somehow is.
Well, you got to think of this also as a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Because what happens if we get a, attorney general that's a Democrat?
Yeah.
And, the Republicans are saying, well, this is, we're not going to prosecute that, or we're going to do this. And the attorney general goes, no, that's not right. And steps in and wants to run it the Democrat fashion. So.
Well, if the point, I mean, the fact is,
or independent, Green Party, Liberty. I mean, there's 42 parties to choose from, but we just pick between the 2 majors. So.
Right. Well, and I think why I'm not bothered as concerned about that is simply because when you're talking about a district attorney level, when I took my case to the attorney general, their answer was, we don't have any ability to do anything like that. For an attorney general to go after. To I guess enforce the law where the district attorney doesn't. I mean, it would be, they're not going to nitpick little things like what I'm talking about. So I think we're kind of talking about the Trump issue, maybe that the
sure, the elections, the election integrity. That was the main purpose, I guess, behind this one. I wasn't in that subcommittee, so
yeah.
We didn't really hear a whole lot about that one.
Okay.
So
well, all right. Well, so good stuff there. Okay, I wanted to talk about F. So you and I talked about this before. This is I like this. CHL, those of us who are licensed handgun to carry a firearm, It allows those who do carry a firearm. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't put that up. There it is. Okay, it allows those who, and we're on F.
Yes.
And it allows those to mirror the language of the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution of the United States, ensuring clarity and consistency, protect the people's rights to bear arms. In addition, licensed concealed carry holders may legally carry firearms in public sporting venues, including, but not limited to, ballparks, arenas, sporting events, air shows, car shows, rodeos, or if financed in part with taxpayer funds or hold tax exemptions. So the one omission there for me was schools. Yeah. So because and what was funny is when we're talking about it, you're like, well, no, I thought that was in there because obviously you guys had talked about that. So why but you were not
we
aware
talked
that
about it
had
in
been
the
taken.
committee as a whole.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, I'm like, why? Hello, what's
What
going on
happened?
here? Because and part of what we were talking about was the fact that, why don't we have teachers who have LTCs?
Oh, exactly.
If they have, and there are, I'll tell you right now, I know of probably 5 or 6 training facilities that have stated if a teacher wants to get an LTC, they won't have to pay.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, no, we're good. You're good to go. You're a teacher. Come on in. You will get trained. You will be educated. You will know and we'll get your LTC and you're good to go.
Yeah.
And I was just like, wow, man, it makes me want to go get a teaching coach.
Exactly.
But, and having an LTC, I mean, I had they called it a CHL, or CWL, whatever, in California.
Okay, in California.
I actually had a California concealed permit.
Oh, really? Okay.
And people...
How is it different? How is it different from Texas?
Well, so Texas, when you get your LTC, you have a license to carry, and that's it, right? It's your license to carry. You still go through all the same background checks, the investigations, you do your training, whole 9 yards, right? You get everything that's in there is proper. In California, you do that as well, except the background check, they go even deeper. It's like, wow, okay, you're going to run full bore. Let's do it. Okay, that's great. And the training, it wasn't as in-depth, I don't think, because there were a couple of people that I saw on the firing line when we were doing our actual permit qualifications that guy doesn't need a gun. It's like, I don't want to be around him when he ever has to use it. Hopefully he never has to, but but in California, they list only the 3 weapons by serial number that you're allowed to carry concealed.
Okay.
In Texas, it's just like, you got it, you own it, you can carry it.
What were those 3?
So no, you would have to list whichever ones you wanted to carry. So for me, I have a Pair Ordnance P1345. That's my primary everyday carry. I also have a secondary, which is a Glock 35, and that's barreled in a 40 cal. And then I usually had a subcompact, so it was a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 40. So those were the 3 weapons that I had listed on my California permit.
Okay.
And those were the only 3 I was allowed to carry at any given time. I couldn't carry them all together. I could only carry one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So California was very strict on that.
Okay.
And Texas says, you're licensed. You know how to handle your firearms. You know what to do. Yeah, I don't care if you want to wear your Glock or you want to have your Para or you want to have Smith & Wesson, your Ruger. It's like, no, go for it.
Wow.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, Texas is like, we're going to treat you as an adult.
Yeah. 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 You left the nanny state.
Right? Yeah,
I get it.
absolutely.
I get it. Okay.
Couldn't have been happier.
No, I get it.
I just wish we'd have done it decades prior.
Amen. Well, and just above that is, or just below that, I should say, is G. And so the pass unrestricted constitutional carry by amending Article 1, Section 23 of the Texas Constitution by removing the wording, but the legislature shall have the power by law to regulate wearing of arms with a view to prevent crime. So thought that was fairly insightful. And then finally is H, which I really like. Support an amendment that would allow for the recall of any elected officials in the state of Texas for misconduct while in office or failure to properly represent their constituents. That is really that coincides with 10. And which you were like, hey, did you see 10? And I'm like, oh, let's look at that. And so
dereliction of duty.
Dereliction of duty. The failure by a public official to discharge any duty shall be a violation of the terms of his or her office, which shall constitute a crime, and upon commission of this crime shall be punishable by a fine or imprisonment, depending on the nature of the offense. Any entity or person who acts under the color of federal or state law to deprive a Texan of the rights or privileges ensured by the federal and state constitutions shall be liable to the injured parties for redress, including monetary damages and injunctive relief, notwithstanding any pre-existing immunities. Love that. I mean, those...
Yeah, that one went through some edits.
Did it? Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah. That one went through some edits. And we did that because it came out of committee into, or came out of the subcommittee into the committee as a whole. And there was a lot of like, well, hold on now, wait a minute. So you're saying that you're going to hold them. And some of it was they wanted to hold them personally liable and they wanted to do all this. And it was like, okay, hold on now. It's the office, right? It's them within their office.
Right.
So let's keep this regulated and, aimed at their dereliction of duty.
Yeah.
So let's focus on that. And so that went through a lot of iterations, and that was the final version that came out.
What were the examples that some gave for this?
Yeah, I think they gave the examples in the subcommittee. In the committee at large, we didn't really.
Okay. They didn't. Okay. I was just curious. I didn't know if there was something that prompted that in particular. So that's good. And then going backward just a little bit to number 7, which is again something these are amendments to the U.S. Constitution, which we'll talk about, something that makes this possible in a little bit, but support term limits. Big supporter of term limits. The 16th Amendment. Now here's what's interesting. Hey, Lauren Lectie, who is he's our commissioner-elect, who has fought support restoring state sovereignty with the repeal of the 17th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and the appointment of U.S. senators. Oops, sorry. And but he has every year he has fought this one. It has never made it on the Rockwall platform. Never made it beyond the committee because he's killed it. But it's always gotten on the state platform committee. So we're always laughing about how it never gets on Rockwall. Because he does a good job. Of making his argument. It's a very cogent argument and persuasive. I will say that this is no longer an issue for me that I'm going to die on, hill I'm not going to die on anymore, because I think Lauren has changed my mind a bit. But anyway, that is on the state platform. And the E. Do you want to talk about the birth tourism?
Oh, with the anchor babies?
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if we need to read that for your listeners or anyone watching.
Yeah, the support. That's right, because we're
support a change to the 14th Amendment to eliminate birth tourism or anchor babies by granting citizenship only to those with at least one biological parent who is a United States citizen.
It's a big issue.
It is. Because we have people that come across the border, and they see it all the time down in McAllen. I mean, there's a hospital down there that was a customer of mine, and they would constantly see people come across the border just to give birth. And, the lady comes across, she gives birth, all of a sudden, here's that anchor baby.
Yep.
And when that kid turns, I forgot what it was, like 12 or 18 or whatever, they can put in the request for the parents to become citizens through birthright citizenship is what they were calling it. We're the only country in the world that does this.
Yeah.
If you're traveling when, and your wife is pregnant, because, you can't get pregnant, right? You know that. The Democrats would say otherwise.
They would disagree. Yeah, they do.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, so if your wife was pregnant and you were traveling, and say you were in Italy or you were Spain or Germany or anywhere in the world, she gave birth, does not make that child a citizen.
It doesn't.
Doesn't make the child a dual citizen. Doesn't do anything. The child is still an American citizen, just born on foreign soil.
Yep.
And that's what this is trying to get back to. It's like, no, that is a foreign citizen. If the child's from, it doesn't matter where they're coming from across the border. I mean, we used to just say, oh, they're from Mexico or they're from South America somewhere, whether it was Honduras, Guatemala, whatever. No. Now they're coming from all over the world through the southern border, as well as our northern borders from Canada. So.
Well, and, Fox News just reported, I mean, probably an hour or two before you got here to the studio, is that Joe Biden has just made an executive order on this issue Do you? And I didn't
something
hear
about 500,000 people would be able to
Yeah.
do this. And I think it was if they've been here for at least 10 years
Yes, that's right.
with no criminal history. Because I only heard this actually on the radio as I was driving.
Yeah.
You know, and so it was if they've been here for 10 years, they'll do a background check. They have to have no criminal record, and they'll be able to go through to become a citizen. And it's like, well, why? You know, they're still here illegally. You're going to reward them for breaking our national and federal law to enter this country illegally. But yeah, you're going to say, oh yeah, we'll give you citizenship. Come on.
It is amazing. I mean, he's pandering to the left of his party, which basically is his party. But you know, it surprised me when I was watching the Democrat convention. The sheriff of Bexar County spoke. Is a Democrat, and he's Hispanic, and talking about how important it is to welcome these people in, and it was so contradictory. You see somebody with a badge, who's, I mean, Bexar County is the Texas Hill Country, so it's not on the border. It's not a border city, but still, I was just shocked that there's almost the Democrats are almost tone deaf to the.
Well, it's not just Democrats. There's Republicans, too, that think that way.
Yeah, who think about that the border should be open.
Well, they agree with closing the border, but they're sitting there saying, well, okay, so you got to remember the people that are coming across, you know, a lot of them, especially your Mexican nationals, they're Catholic.
Yep.
They're not going to vote the Democrat way with regards towards abortion, with regards towards women's rights, with regards towards gender ideology, with regards towards a lot of things that the left is touting. So in that respect, it's like, look, you know, maybe the Democrats should start thinking that, hey, you know what, you're actually letting in Republican voters.
Well, but at the same time,
if they become citizens.
Well, if they become citizens, but they're going to vote Democrat. They're just going to vote blindly Democrat. I think is one of the challenges. Why not? Why do you not agree?
Well, just for the same reasons that I mentioned there. I mean, the mentality, the family, the social issues. Why is it that the majority of the labor workers that you see, people that come around, cut the lawns, do the trees, do the gardens, do the flower beds, they're the painters, the roofers, the contractors. I mean, I can go and list a lot of these blue collar jobs. They're coming from across the border. Right. You don't see a whole lot of Anglo doing these jobs. Right. So they have a very strong work ethic. They have a very, very strong family work, family belonging, family relationship. Everything is, mi familia. So they are all about family. You have, education. They tell their kids, it's important for you to get a good education. You need a good education. What are the things that the Democrats are trying to tell people? That say, oh, don't work so hard, we'll give you stuff. Right? They're about giving away and giving out and making sure that they give you, not just, offer you a hand up, but they give you that platform to go from. Right? The Republicans are like, look, we're going to help you, but you're still going to work for this. You're still going to do this. And so it's the familial representation that these folks are already, it's ingrained in them. And when you see their, abuelas and the abuelo, and you see their grandparents and the fathers and the mothers, and they're all coming in, they're telling their kids, you need to study, you need to get good grades. They're pushing hard for this.
Well, and so yeah, I mean, I see that as well. I mean, I see that, but I guess my perspective. So this is, and I'm not disagreeing with you here. I'm trying to talk this through. So sure. It has been my sense that more of those who have come from, I guess, cultures like Cuba, for instance, I see that really clearly because they're fleeing oppression.
Absolutely.
Right. So that to me is why the Cuban population has become so ingrained in the Republican Party, much more so. And I agree. I think the Hispanic population, for instance, Rockwall County Hispanic, Club is probably the most active of all the County, I'm just going to
Sure.
offend a lot of people, I'm sure, but I'm just saying, I do think that, I think it's Alma, is that her name? Alma
McClintock?
McClintock. I think she was the president of that. Is that right?
She does the women's.
She does women. Yeah, I mean, she does an amazing job, and she's, but it is the Hispanic that is so active, I think, within our party, and I do think it's going to, strengthen us.
Sure. Well, and you got to remember that our the Rockwell County Hispanic, the Republican Hispanic Club, was here for a while, went away.
Yeah.
Right. Edna Sullivan took it upon herself.
That's right.
And Edna was like, "I am bringing this back."
That's right, Edna. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And so Edna brought it back, and she ran it for a couple of years. Did a great job she made her voice known. She told everybody, we are a force to be reckoned with. You do not understand, because the Hispanic Club, if you can win the Hispanic vote here in the county, you can win your seat.
No, I agree. And I forgot. It was Edna that I was thinking of. So, but my issue is you have all of these people coming across the border. Then you have government programs like WIC. They're having children, and they're basically getting so much of a handout. And then you have Catholic Church. For instance, I was watching. Well, one of my favorite things about the Democrat convention are the two people who prayed. The first one that prayed, man, it is so worth watching the prayer. I mean, it's a state rep, and this white guy who, I mean, God in whatever name you have many names, whatever. That was so entertaining. But then the second one, I believe, was a Catholic priest. He had the collar. It doesn't mean he's Catholic. There's a lot of that do, but. When I listened to that prayer, I was like, "Whoa! That's political, and boy, that's bad." So I'm seeing and it's not. By the way, it's not just Catholics.
Sure.
It's Church Universal. I think this church in America. I mean, evangelical churches. We have become completely feckless. We have become. We are being absorbed by our culture rather than changing our culture.
That's right.
And so there's a much bigger issue going on there. The issue of abortion obviously is a big one. That's one they're going to hit in this national election. Sure. Does it translate here into the new to the new illegal aliens who eventually become citizens? I don't know.
Well, when you tell. So I've heard some folks who have come up from like Brownsville and McAllen and Eagle Pass and those areas, and when you're talking with these folks, they laugh at anybody who's gender, confused.
Yeah,
they're sitting there like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah,
you have really, reach down, and grab a hold. It'll tell you one way or the other.
Yeah,
so it's just like, wow, okay.
Well, and that kind of brings up a point that the quorum for Democrat convention.
They couldn't even get a quorum.
They couldn't get a quorum. Do you know what so how many people were at the Republican convention?
Oh Lord,
I've got the number somewhere.
It was between 6,000 and 9,000.
That's right. I think it was yes, almost 7,000, 8,000, something like that. And it was massive.
Yes, it was.
They could not get a quorum of 960 people. They could not get 60-something people, 960-something people. Actually, I've got it. I'll be specific, but that tells you the difference between the two parties and how they're.
And this used to be a blue state.
It did. Oh yeah.
Well, and
John Tower, whose picture I have above me, he is the first Republican U.S. senator from Texas.
Well, and one of the things that I was telling people during my campaign is you have to understand, Texas isn't necessarily a strong Republican state. We're a non-voting blue state.
How so? What do you mean?
There are still a lot of people who are either registered or think the way that the Democrats vote, and think the way they think and do everything else, that just aren't voting. We literally are, in a race for who's going to win. I'll say the popular majority, if you will, because we have to get Republicans out to vote. Yeah. Think about how many Republicans didn't vote in our primary.
Boy, isn't that true?
Just
so true.
Just think about that.
Yeah.
70-something% of our Republicans didn't vote in our primary.
Yep.
That is huge.
That's very true. 959 members were present, and they did not have a quorum. I think it was 959 members was required for a quorum. They didn't have that. So so that was that just shows you the difference between and when you watch, gosh, it's eye opening. I will say that it is. It's heart wrenching in a lot of ways as well.
Oh, absolutely.
But as we let's keep going on to I wanted to talk quickly on this one on the rights of a sovereign people. At the very end of that,
you went up to 11. Take a look.
Did I say 11? That's what I wanted. 11.
Yeah, take a look at 7F before you jump ahead.
7F. I'm sorry. Let's go to 7F. Thank you. 7F. Supporting a constitutional amendment making English the official language of the United States. Yeah, and that's been on the platform
for a long time.
For a long time, yeah.
And I had some people there in the committee who were in the committee as a whole asking me. They're like, "Well, why do you want to talk about this?" I said, "I want you to understand something. Everybody says don't California my Texas, and they complain about California and whatever, blah blah blah. California's actual official language is English. You know that, right?" And they went, "What?" I said, "Yeah, they added it to their California Constitution.
Huh.
The official language for the state of California
When did they
is
do
English."
That?
I don't remember when they did it.
Was it when you were there, or?
I think it was even before I was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was the Reagan days.
Probably,
It was before Reagan.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, Texas, you want to talk about, and I love the fact that we have people that are so staunch, Republican conservatives, the grassroots stepping up as we saw during the primaries. Why don't we just go ahead and have the vote, make it our official language?
Yeah, but this is a U.S. making it official language of the United States. Sure. This is
yeah. So that's the push for at the federal level, but we can also do this here in the state.
Sure. So what point were you making on California? Because they've already done that, but what?
Texas doesn't have an official language. You know that?
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. We should. Why not English?
Yeah. No, I agree. And yeah. Good idea.
Yeah. Just little thing.
Okay. All right. Well, now let's go to
11.
Let's go to 11, and 11 is basically the right of the sovereign people. At the very end of that, Texas shall keep the Texas Citizen Participation Act intact and preserve its broad scope and essential protections for First Amendment rights. Now, that is not the only place that you see that in the
TCPA.
The TCPA. That's not the only place that you see it in this platform. It is also on 162. Make it a little easier. There we go. 162. You see. Frivolous lawsuits. We support further reform, and there at the end there, we call for the legislature to keep the Texas Citizen Participation Act an essential protection for Texans' First Amendment rights. Now, the reason I think that's so important is because I am being sued for defamation by a developer, who violated Texas state law, but that's not what I'm being sued for. So I'm not being sued for stating that they violated Texas state law. I'm being sued for something I never said. I'm being sued for something that they have basically conflagrated. They've created a ruse to say that I'm saying something that I never did. And this is where the Texas Citizen Participation Act falls. Now, the problem with the Texas Citizen Participation Act, in my experience so far, is the judge that heard it had never heard a Texas Citizen Participation Act case. How do I know that? Well, because Judge Pruitt, Jim Pruitt, actually got the case initially, and he said, "Well, no, I know Bunker Bob. I can't see this case." But he came to me. He said, "So the judge that did see it, he called me and said, 'What do you know about this TCPA, Texas Citizen Participation Act?'" Then at the opening of our hearing for the TCPA, the judge said, "We're here for," and the transcript goes, and I basically say, "Texas Citizen Participation Act." The guy had no idea really, that's the way it appeared to me as a non-attorney. But I was shocked that he really didn't seem to understand or grasp the situation. What's even better about it is I'm being sued for malicious defamation.
Oh, wow.
Which requires, well, first of all, because it's against a public figure. So a public figure is suing me, and a public figure who's been on my show, a public figure that I have supported ad nauseum, who I've been a huge supporter of. He's suing me for malicious defamation, which means that I had to know what I was saying was false when I said it. And the attorney for the plaintiff says, he goes through the transcript of some of the things I'm saying, which, by the way, have nothing to do with the case.
Right.
He's just showing other things, gastronomical things that Bunker Bob says about people. And he says, and he said in that he goes, now I believe that Mr. Steinhagen believes everything he's saying.
Right. I think our either mics or speaker.
Okay, yours is out too.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, I still see. Still see the. All right, so we're still on.
I just heard it go down some in volume.
Something happened with our sound. But that so malicious stuff. The attorney literally says, now I believe that Mr. Steinhagen believes everything that he's saying. Well, if that's true, then it can't be malicious defamation. But see, this judge in the hearing, and I highlighted that point, he didn't see that. So it's in appeal right now, which is pretty much where these things end up. And I just got word that another TCPA case has just been adjudicated, and the person who is being sued for defamation won it big time, and it cost the plaintiff $140,000 in attorney fees. And so that's what I've been told. So this is so important. If a developer doesn't like what you're saying, if he wants to shut you down, they're going to just throw a lawsuit at you. This is a frivolous lawsuit, folks. That's what the Texas Republican Platform says, that frivolous lawsuit, which is what I am being sued for, frivolously. Mm-hmm. And what's ironic about the whole thing is that this person who's suing me, he says, and he loves to talk about the Republican Party platform. Well, he believes in the Republican platform so long as it doesn't impact his development. And that, to me, is the most dangerous kind of politician ever.
Sure.
If you don't have a compass, that's someone who lives without a compass, in my opinion. See, I'm saying my opinion here because I don't want someone to misunderstand what I'm saying. But in my opinion, if you don't have a compass, then you don't know right from wrong. You can't, and it doesn't matter what it is. You should have the same standard for everything, but this individual, these people don't. So anyway, I will be talking more about this, especially as the case moves forward. But it's absolutely. Oh, and this guy, he's also suing a single mom who of 4 kids for what? Defamation.
Oh my gosh.
The person who led the fight against this developer, against the development, actually. Well, he's suing her. Just shut her up, because he doesn't want people getting in their way. So it's lawfare at its worst, at its most despicable. So don't even think that Democrats have cornered the market on lawfare. No. Republicans are just as disgraceful as Democrats sometimes. All right, so let's move on to other things. And I have no idea what happened to our feed. I know that you can hear me, so let's move on. I did want to highlight one thing on 15, which I really liked. It's
the census?
Yeah, on the census. It's illegal.
Aliens must not be included.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Illegal aliens must not be included. Isn't that shocking? But in...
Well, so I'll tell you something about that one.
Yeah,
that one... there were people that were saying that they wanted to have illegal aliens counted as like 1/3 or 2/3 of a person or something like
On
that.
the committee?
Yeah, they're even in the committee, and then there were other people talking, because I guess there was something, I don't know if it's in place now or something else that was talked about, but that actually goes against constitutional rights of not giving people equal value. And
You're right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a slave used
exactly,
to be,
right?
Oh!
So it was like, no. You
Oh,
either are or
man.
you aren't. There's none of this quarter, half, 3/4, whatever. No. You're not partially counting a person.
That's interesting.
So we ended up with, illegal aliens. You are not part of our census.
Exactly. And I love the fact that it's not politically correct. Illegal aliens. See, you're supposed to say migrants.
No, because migrants are illegal.
That's right. It's ridiculous, isn't
Right.
it? All right. Okay. Here's 19. This is the place where I said it was again. It's D, 19D. Recognize the right of licensed carry holders to carry anywhere off duty or retired law enforcement personnel to carry anywhere, including any federal property accessible to the general public, including but not limited to waterways, lakes, dams, and postal offices. Again, schools are not included.
Right.
So, okay. This is the one that you wanted to highlight. It's I. Go for it. I love this.
Oh, yeah. Let's read this one here. Require that businesses or commercial property owners that prohibit licensed permit holders from carrying a firearm into their establishments assume liability for their safety, since the owners are denying those persons the right to protect themselves.
That is brilliant. I love that.
It was something that, as we were all talking about it and we were going through, somebody else came up with the language in the committee as a whole. And it was just absolutely, yep. You should make sure that if somebody says you can't carry here, you got to go lock it in your truck, or you can't leave on whatever. Okay, great. Then you are in charge of my protection, and you are fully responsible.
That is brilliant. I love that. That's new. So, that was hot. That was awesome. How about 24? This one was hot. This is where we kind of talk about the chair of the committee.
This Convention of States, Article 5. And the funny part is the JBSers were there, the John Birch Society folks. And you heard them. They lined up at the mics.
They sure did.
Oh, and they were passionate about it. And they wanted to bring up that, well, California just called for a Convention of States for gun control, so that means that we're going to be... It's like, you obviously don't understand how the convention works.
Right.
And we were trying to educate him. We were trying to talk to him. And I sat down, as we go down that little cafe down there, I sat there talking to a group of John Birch Society folks one day.
Really?
And they were just, but this is the way. And I said, that's not the way it works. You have to read it. And I had asked some of the Convention of States folks, I said, can I have some of those little, pocket guides to the Convention of States? And I was like, here, why don't you read that? Why don't you get an understanding of what you think is going to happen, when in all actuality that can never happen because of the way that Article 5 was written.
Yes.
Well, it's going to be a runaway convention. It's not going to be a runaway convention. How is it going to be a runaway convention when you have to have the majority of everyone, of the states first off, and then you have to have the majority of everyone vote for it? Otherwise, it gets next, and then we got to start all over again.
Exactly.
And you can't add something to it after the convention's been called.
Right.
Because right now, the Convention of States that Texas is signed on to, and the other, 17 or 18 states are signed on to, there's three articles. There are three. That's it, three. California wants to add a new one. You can't add that to R3.
That's right.
That doesn't happen that way.
That's right.
And they refuse to listen to it. And I'm going, read the book that I just gave you.
Yeah.
And become educated on this, and then we can have a further discussion. I ended up just walking away from it, and they were like, I can't believe you don't want to have a conversation and listen, and you don't want... I'm like, look, I understand John Birch Society was started in, 57, 58, and it was all because of the fear of the socialists taking over within our government. I get that.
Yeah.
Right? We have the socialists in our government right now.
We do.
Folks, you need to wake up and understand this. And they were so afraid of and then the hypocritical aspect. And you remember when I called them hypocrites during the committee?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, they weren't happy about that. Because they want to change one of the other amendments. And I'm like, well, hold on now. You want to change another constitutional amendment But yet you're afraid of calling a convention, and you know that, and it was for term limits, and you know that that's one of the things that we're talking about
yes.
with the convention of states.
Yep.
But you want to do it, and well, we're going to rely on our elected officials to do it. Well, the elected officials aren't going to do it, so that's why you're here saying you want to do it through our platform. Well, hold on now. That means that we actually have to have a convention of states.
Yeah.
And I was like, the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It was laughable. It really was.
Yeah, it was.
And when I'm talking to him, I'm like, you understand? You're actually talking in favor of a convention of states here, just for the one topic.
Yep.
And if that's all that's important to you, then great. Call a convention. Put in the paperwork. Do everything accordingly. Call a convention for term limits.
Yeah. Exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
Because our elected officials aren't going
they're not.
do term limits.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So this is where at the committee level, the chair really overstepped his bounds in so many ways. It was put on the platform, and then the chair got the committee to take it off, and it was just and he imposed his position on it. And to me, it's one of those things that, in reality, I don't think this will ever happen. I'm just going to say, I look at the logistics of it. I don't think it's possible. But do I support it? Yeah, I'm going to support it. If we could get this passed, let's do it. If we could get how many states do we have to have?
We have to have 3/4, so 30. What's 38?
Yeah. So,
and we're only at 18, 19 right now.
And we lost 3
Yeah.
recently. So yeah, I don't think it's ever going to happen. And so it's like
it could happen through education, and it's going to have to be a true educational push throughout these states.
But I think we have a better chance of getting Trump elected in all with the Reagan landslide.
Right.
Than that happening. That's
Hey,
literally
that might
what
just
we're
happen.
looking
They
at.
keep prosecution after prosecution.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely
because
right.
they're building his support. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that he crashed WinRed, or that we the people
yeah.
crashed WinRed that night.
Oh man, wasn't that amazing?
And I've talked to some people about it, and they said, well, what's the significance of crashing WinRed? What about that? I said, no, that handled almost all of the Republican campaigns throughout, multiple elections.
Right.
All at once.
They've got some big servers.
And in one night, it couldn't handle the amount
the
of
donations.
throughput that was coming in.
That's right.
And people went, oh.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I predict a huge, that's assuming, and see, this is YouTube, so I've got to be real careful how I say this, because
Right.
we don't want to see the election stolen like it was when Trump won and Hillary lost. Is that okay, YouTube? Could I say that?
Yeah.
Because that's what Hillary and all of the Democrats keep saying. But yeah, all right. So we'll just leave it at that.
Right.
Okay. So we got just a couple more minutes left.
Yeah.
I wanted to hit mine. Yes,
Yeah, the mud one, right?
The mud one. Yeah.
Yes.
There's this is the proposed water district, and this is in addition to those who have lived inside a proposed water district for the statutorily required minimum 6 months prior to an election to approve water districts. The Texas legislature should amend the standard for approval of a water district, which is a precursor to a municipal utility district (MUD), to include any registered voter who has resided on a property within 1,000 feet from a proposed property line for at least the same amount of time. Two things I want to say. Well, one thing I want to say about it is, one, it is exactly as I wrote it, which I was shocked by, but there was a lot of confusion on the committee, and you had a lot of conversations about it.
I got to tell people exactly what happens here in Texas, because a lot of them didn't even realize it was happening until I showed them. I said, all right, good. I showed them ours with the elections. I said, all right, I'm going to pull up the ballot and I'm going to show you. Okay, so here it is. Here's these MUDs.
Yes.
And they're like, yeah. And
Just list the MUDs out.
1 vote for, 0 against.
Exactly.
1 vote for, 0 against. It was all the bonds. It was all of the directors. Everything was just 1 0, 1 0, 1 0, 1 0. I said, how does that happen?
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Throughout Texas.
Yeah, everywhere. Go and look on your ballots. Go and look and see. And so some of them did, and they were like, holy cow. I said, you didn't see it on yours. because you don't live in that district.
Yep.
And you weren't able to vote on it. So you wouldn't see it on your ballot.
Yep.
And they just, oh my gosh. I said, yeah. So I started challenging all of them. I said, I want you all to go and take a look at the last couple of elections and
Yeah.
where you had bonds come up and where MUDs were developed. And you're like, well, how did that get passed? Here you go. And they all went and looked and they were like, holy cow, you're right. And I said, yeah. I said, you'll find that someone will buy a parcel of land. Then they're going to put in for, the districts and, and TCEQ and PUCT can just grant the authority and there you go, right? It's whether the city is going to do it or not or what have you. And
Exactly.
You're like, oh, good Lord, this is ridiculous. So then they drop a trailer in there and they hire somebody and pay them to live there for the 6 months. And then they have the address and everything.
Established residency.
Yep. And so once they've established residency, then when the election comes up, that person's told you're just going to vote for these things and for these people. And to see only things that are on that person's ballot, only people that are on that person's ballot. So they just go, yep, yep, right on down the line. And then everybody wins by 1-0, 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. It's like, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Why that's so important for those to catch anyone up that doesn't understand, if you're going to create a development in Texas and it doesn't, a city must provide water to be able to regulate it. And so what these developers do is they go into ETJs or into the counties where it's just county
Non-regulated.
And so they basically will create their own water district so that they can pretty much do whatever they want. And they do create whatever they want. And all of these developers, they say the same thing: property rights, property rights, property rights.
Yep.
These same developers are the same developers that create these developments with HOAs that are so restrictive and have so many fines. You have a dead bush, boy, the HOA's management company gets paid. Yeah,
All right, Mr. Steinhagen, you got a dead bush here. It's going to be a fine if you don't take care of that right away.
yeah, and since we sent you a notice, you got to pay for the notice that we sent you.
That's
right. Yeah, it's a racket, and these developers who own these MUDs, I mean, they laugh all the way to the bank. So any developer who tells you they believe in property rights, they're lying
and so-
to you. That's my opinion, by the way.
Well, and so I was talking about this also from the perspective of the people that, because knocking on doors as I did during the campaign, right? People were like, what are we going to do about this mud over here? It's like, well, okay, let me explain this to you. And so we talk about it. And I said, now, wouldn't it have been nice if you had had a voice?
Exactly.
When they were doing, and I said, this was on a ballot. And they go, well, I wasn't on my ballot. I'm like, okay, so I show them where it was on the ballot. And they're like, well, who was that one person? I said, it's the guy that lives in that trailer right there.
And when we're talking about trilogy, it happens to be a guy who's been arrested twice for indecency with a child.
Yeah, he's a felon. And I think he lives within, what is it, the 2,000 feet? You're not supposed to be within 2,000 feet of a school or children or whatever, something like that.
I don't know what it is.
And he's only like 1,000 feet away from something. I was just like, holy cow. I'm hearing parents talk about that. I'm like, okay, that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, the woman that this developer is suing, a single mom of four boys, she lives very close to that trailer, and but they're suing her. They're suing her. They are disgraceful. I mean, there's no they're unconscionable in what they're doing. And the point is, I don't believe for a second that developer said, "Hey, let's put a sex offender on this property."
They just hired somebody.
I just don't think they care. They just don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care who they put on there. Oh, he's a he I don't know if he's a registered sex offender or not, but I do know that he has been arrested twice, according to the law, to the records that I saw, arrested twice for indecency with a minor. So yeah, and I think their answer to that is, oh, well, we didn't know, and they don't.
Well,
they don't care.
and regardless of that, right? So, but the thing is,
I'm being specific here.
Yeah, and that's fine. But I mean, the overall impact to the surrounding communities, and this is where I started talking to folks about it, down in committees, and I said, look. If your neighbor decides that they're going to build a basketball court and put a football field in behind and they're going to do all this stuff and put the lights up, I said, are you going to be impacted by the lights? I'm like, yeah. Are you going to be impacted by the sound of the game? Yeah. Are you going to be impacted by all this stuff? Yeah. I said, what about all the traffic? And they were like, oh, yeah, the traffic is huge. I said, so what do you think happens when your neighboring property all of a sudden has 2 or 4 roads going in and out, and it builds, I don't know, 120, 250, 400 homes. Now, how's your water? Because I know in McLennan Chisholm, we ran out of water. We have a water crisis. We're approaching summer, and this is my conversation then, right? As we're approaching summer, we're going to be in stage 3 or 4 water restrictions again. Mm-hmm. Guaranteed. So why don't we start talking about simple things like, I don't know, having a moratorium on new builds, just something like that. And I've talked to people, and I've heard people say, well, a moratorium on new builds, you really can't do that because you have to do a moratorium for cause. And it's like, okay, tell you what, how about we initiate a moratorium, and the cause is so that we can do an actual study on our infrastructure. Are we capable of handling and supporting the water requirements of those said new homes? Because right now we have, and I'm thinking countywide, there's about a dozen new communities being built. And our county itself, why does Rockwall City want, Heath and McLennan Chisholm and everybody else off their water towers?
Right.
Because they need the water for themselves.
That's right.
Right? Okay, great. So that's why McLennan Chisholm, with David Naylor and everybody else involved, RCH, they got an approval to go direct to Texas Municipal Water District.
Yes.
Right? So now we have that direct connect.
Isn't that beautiful?
I mean, we have all of these things in place. And why are these things happening? Because it's an emergency situation.
Yep.
Because we're in this position. We can't continue to build infrastructure after infrastructure just to catch up, and we're constantly behind.
That's right.
So, I've used this in the past, and I told people, I said, look, my mom used to work in Howard County, Maryland. I get it. It's not a county in Texas. This isn't Texas we're talking about. But still there, at the county level, they decided, hey, we're going to put a moratorium in just so the infrastructure can catch up. And the moratorium was only on new builds. You can still put a back porch or an extension on your house, or you want to do it. That's fine. You're still going to do those. But you're not going to build new communities until the infrastructure is capable of handling that.
Yep.
So that's what they did there. And they did it for about, I think it was like 2.5 or 3 years in total, because it took them that long to do the sewer, the water, the electrical, everything that needed to be done. And then they were able to start building again. When they started building, it was like, hey, you know what? We don't have the traffic issues. We don't have the water issues. We don't have all those other things. And I'm tempted to go to each one of the cities here in Rockwall and talk to all the mayors and the city councils and say, the county won't do it. Why don't you do it as a city? Put a moratorium in place. Heath already did it. And I think it was either Fate or Roy City. I think it was Roy City that put a moratorium in.
Yes. But here's the problem. State Republican platform. It's item number 30. Municipal. We call the Texas legislature to continue to streamline the building permitting process to ease burdens and cost on who? Developers and consumers. Yeah. Who do you think wrote this? We encourage the legislature to monitor implementation of existing legislation that protects property development rights and to close loopholes that cities are using to circumvent these laws. We oppose retroactive rulemaking and changing the rules on development that have already been issued permits, unused landfill permits, yada yada.
Yeah.
But this is the problem, because we do have those who got things like this put in our platform, and just to stop what you're talking about, these moratoriums, they want to put an end to that.
Well, you can still put a moratorium in place, and this won't stop it.
You don't think so?
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope that's true.
Because this is about the permitting process, right? Because there's so many loopholes that everybody has to jump through in the permitting process.
But that's how you put a moratorium. You put a moratorium on permits to allow buildings.
Right. But the moratorium it is the first step. Right? If you can get the moratorium in place in the first step,
right,
then the rest of the process, and this is all about the process.
Yeah.
At least this is what I was told, because in the committee as a whole, I talked about this. I was like, hold on here. I got a question about this one. And, people were like, no. And that's why when you and I briefly talked about it, I said, well, let me find out more, and then I'll get
this
back
wasn't
to you.
your subcommittee.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to suggest that.
No. Yeah.
I'm simply highlighting the problems that we still face within our own party. And I mean, this is the mindset. Now we're over time, but I mean, this has been a good conversation, because there's a lot of good things that have come out of the platform committee, and they've worked really hard. And kudos to all of them who participated, because they really did a great job of just getting in and making things happen. And so I want to thank Dennis for joining me again.
Thanks for having me again.
It is always refreshing to talk through some issues and really kind of work through some, because there were some things I wasn't quite aware of. So thank you for being here again. You're always welcome. And I hope that this has been helpful for you. I am still working on the highlights of the Democrat convention, because honestly, when you see the juxtaposition, and I hope I can do that, show you two different conventions, two different mindsets, because that's really enlightening and eye-opening. So I hope that you'll come back next time. I look forward to seeing you then. Until then, I'm Bunker Bob Steinhagen, wishing you blessings. We'll see you next time.